How long can you stay the course here and just hope that things get turned around if you're the Mets?
Well, you stay the course, to be honest, until the All-Star break. I mean, that's, you can go back. We can, look at the Braves last year. The Mets were 9 games ahead of them by this time, I think, last year. Who knows? But, hey, look, it comes down to the fact that the big guys aren't getting it done, whether it's the pitchers, the offense, whatever it might be. And those are the guys you rely on. And it's easy to say, well, let's go bring the young guys up. Well, guess what? You know what? This is the big leagues, and you fill your lineup with all rookies, and you're going to struggle because they're going to have some real downtime. You got to stay the course. You got to stay positive. You got to keep putting them in the right situations because obviously they're right now you can just tell by watching them play. Hey, the pressure's on every one of them. And it's New York, and that's you think you can escape it every day in the locker room. You can't because the sports writers are there, and they're reminding you every day you're not getting it done. And because that's their job. So what they've got to do is they've got to stay the course. Hey, look, and get their pitching back on track because if they don't pitch, they're not going to win a lot of games.
And maybe even more so now, Terry, where you have the luxury of the playoffs, where it's so expanded, bad teams are going to find their way in. So the Mets maybe do have to stay the course until the All-Star break. And ultimately, they have the horses there. They just got to wait for those guys to get it going. Hannah, the Mets have now been shut out 7 times this season. Buck has moved some guys around in that lineup, which isn't really working. Do we need to see more of a drastic change?
I think the concern is what would that drastic change be? I mean, I think if anything, that drastic change would have to come at the trade deadline. I know there's all this excitement about you should call up the young guys. They bet Beatty and Alvarez are having success, so why not bring up Mauricio and
Vientos? Right.
But they don't have. They have too many. They have an old team. They have too many veterans. They have guys without options. They don't have a lot of flexibility right now with their roster. And I also think it's too early to give up on them. So you're kind of stuck in this place where it's too late to say don't panic, but too early to give up on the guys who do have time to turn it around and who don't have options to get sent back to the minors. I don't think you want to build your whole lineup out of rookies this early in the year. I think, to me, the concern is that Billy Epler in spring training talked about how, he was very explicit. I asked my guys, do we have pitching or hitting in the minors? And they said, we have hitting, so go and spend on pitching. And they went and spent on pitching. And now they spent a lot of money on pitching, and that's looking as much of a black hole as the lineup is. And so I think they're going to have to do something at the trade deadline, which they didn't look super willing to do last year. Terry mentioned the Braves. It's more important to win the trade deadline than it is to win the offseason, especially with the expanded postseason. So they could, I think you should panic, but not change anything.
Listen, I think that's totally fair. You're not going to abandon all of the veterans that you have on this team, but we've also seen instances where sometimes a team that has a lot of veterans gets a shot in the arm from a young player. I love going back to the 2005 Yankees. They were dead to rights. I think they were 11-19 to start off the year. They called up Chin-Ming Wang. They called up Robinson Cano. Both guys were instrumental in their turnaround. They ended up winning the division. I'm not saying you're going to call up every single kid in the minor league system. The Mets are not going to do that. But here's a guy who should be on notice, Mark Canha. Mark Canha is not going to be here long term. He's playing poorly. He's not doing the job. So I'm giving him another couple of weeks. But if we're sitting here Memorial Day, Mark Canha's hitting .220 and he's not hitting for power, then he is not owed the right to be an everyday player for the New York Mets. That's all there is to it. So somebody like Vientos is tearing the cover off the ball in AAA. Sal, I have to be intrigued by the end of May if the Mets are not getting results.
Understood. But even that I don't feel like is a drastic change. For me, Terry mentioned it before, we're talking about the top guys. If Lindor doesn't hit, if Alonso doesn't produce consistently, if Starling Marte doesn't pick it up, it doesn't matter.
Well, you can do.
Yeah, right. It doesn't matter if Mark Vientos comes up or if Mark Canha ever gets it going. But I think the key here is don't panic, but there are concerns with this team. It is still way early.